Mate Albanese has finally done it. He's caved in to the mob, bent the knee to groups that don't give a toss about our way of life, and in doing so he's basically handed over the keys to bloodthirsty thugs who'd rather see this country burn than thrive. And you know what makes it worse? He's doing it all while smiling for the cameras, pretending it's some noble, compassionate act. It's not. It's weak. It's cowardly. And every Aussie out there who's paying attention knows it. You can dress it up with fancy speeches and media spin, but at the end of the day, this is about one thing: votes. Albanese isn't protecting Australians, he's protecting his seat. Before we dive into this Albanese sellout, where Albo caves to mobs, sells out Aussies, and pretends it's progress while our bills go through the roof, slap that like button like it just whacked another tax hike on your grocery bill. Subscribe if you're sick of being betrayed by weak leaders. And grab the "Can I vote for a kangaroo" shirt, links in the description. Now, you've probably noticed how every time Labor's in charge, we get promises of a fair go, big bold visions for the future, and a whole lot of taxpayer dollars flying out the door faster than a schooner on a Friday arvo. But when the cameras are off, the deals that get done are shadier than a dodgy mechanic in the backstreets of Sydney. Just look at this whole net zero obsession. They're calling it progress, but it's nothing more than a giant con job. Campbell Newman's been saying it, and he's right. Labor's track record of picking winners is shocking, absolutely appalling. Every time they meddle, they sink billions into some so-called green revolution project that never delivers, and guess who foots the bill? Us, ordinary Aussies who just want affordable power and a fair shake. Meanwhile, the mates of the party line their pockets, sipping wine on the taxpayer's dime. But here's the spicy bit that no one wants to say out loud: this isn't just about energy or economics anymore. Albanese has made it about survival politics, bending to pressure from activist groups who are more interested in waving flags and shouting slogans than actually making this country better. He's effectively given credibility to people who have made it clear they don't believe in Australia's values, don't care about democracy, and wouldn't think twice about celebrating our downfall. Yet he caved, hoping it'll buy him some peace in the media. That's not leadership, that's fear dressed up as progress. And while he's busy selling us out, ordinary Australians are copping it left, right, and centre. Power bills through the roof. Food prices climbing every week. Businesses drowning in red tape while big corporations get cushy deals that crush small competition. That's the Labor model, folks. Say you're helping the battler while quietly doing deals that leave them worse off. Albanese's government has been pumping up government jobs just to fudge the employment figures, making it look like the economy's kicking when in reality, it's limping along like a roo that's been hit by a ute. It's smoke and mirrors, and Aussies are starting to notice. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, Susan Ley. The first woman to lead the Liberal Party, and now leader of the opposition. And doesn't that just make Albanese squirm? Because here's the thing, she's not afraid to call out the nonsense. She's got no patience for this whole game of letting activist mobs dictate policy. You can bet she'll hammer him on every weak concession, every sweetheart deal, every time he puts politics over people. And you know what? Aussies are ready for it. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about Albanese versus Ley. It's about whether we want a country that stands firm on its values, or one that caves to the loudest mob with the scariest threats. And let's not mince words here. When you give in to demands from groups with extremist ties who celebrate chaos and destruction, you're not keeping Australians safe. You're putting us at risk. You're sending a message that if you scream loud enough, threaten hard enough, you can bend this government to your will. What kind of precedent does that set? Imagine if John Howard had done that after 9/11s. Imagine if any of the old school leaders had decided, yeah, nah, let's just give the terrorists what they want, maybe they'll leave us alone. It's pathetic. It's weak, and it's dangerous. You know what's even more cooked? While Albo's caving to these mobs, he's still slugging ordinary Australians with new taxes, regulations, and costs. They're pushing road user charges for EVs like it's some massive achievement, yet fuel excise for ordinary Aussies hasn't gone down a cent. Where's the relief for families struggling to fill up the tank? Where's the cut for the bloke in the trader ute who actually keeps this country running? It's not there, because this government's too obsessed with playing international superstar on the climate stage to remember who they're supposed to serve. And let's not forget, Albanese's government isn't just failing, it's actively punishing people. A bloke running a small ice cream shop in Melbourne copped a fire and emergency services levy hike of 300%. 300%. And they have the audacity to package it as though it's going to frontline workers, when in reality it's just another sneaky cash grab. That's the problem with this government. They're experts at rebranding theft as investment and hoping Aussies are too distracted to notice. What Albanese doesn't get, or maybe he does and just doesn't care, is that Australians hate being taken for mugs. They don't like being lectured to, they don't like being guilt-tripped, and they sure as hell don't like watching their leaders roll over for people who despise us. It's why there's a growing anger simmering under the surface, one that no amount of carefully crafted speeches or photo ops can paper over. Aussies know when they're being shafted, and right now they're being shafted big time. And here's the kicker, mate. The longer Albanese plays this game, the more he alienates the very people he needs to stay in power. Everyday Australians. The ones who don't spend all day on Twitter, who don't show up to protests, who don't care about virtue signaling politics. They just want leaders with backbone. Leaders who'll put Australia first, protect our borders, keep costs down, and tell activist mobs to rack off. But instead, we've got a Prime Minister who's turned spinelessness into an art form. And here's where it gets properly grim, mate. Albanese doesn't just cave quietly, he doubles down and tries to spin it like it's some grand moral victory. He'll stand there in front of the cameras, chin up, voice all rehearsed, talking about unity and understanding, but anyone with a pair of eyes can see what's really going on. He's cutting deals in the shadows that sell out ordinary Aussies, then dressing them up as progress. It's like he reckons we're too thick to notice the smell of rot wafting off every single one of these decisions. And maybe he thinks he's clever, but the truth is, once you give in to people who thrive on chaos and threats, you don't get peace, you just get more demands. They'll be back tomorrow with louder voices, nastier ultimatums, and he'll have set the bar that this government can be bent. You know, back in the day, politicians at least had the guts to say no, even when it was unpopular. They knew that leading meant sometimes copping flack, but not Albo. He's built his entire prime ministership around keeping as many people happy as possible, even if those people don't give a toss about Australia. That's not compromise, that's cowardice, and Aussies are seeing it. They can feel it every time their power bill spikes, every time their grocery shop leaves their wallet gasping, every time they get slapped with another fine or tax for daring to live a normal life. Albanese is running the country like it's some popularity contest, while the rest of us are left to pick up the tab. And don't think for a second that this is just about international posturing or activist groups waving flags in the streets. No, this goes deeper. We've got a government so obsessed with climate theatrics that it's forgotten the basics of governance. They're happy to throw billions into projects that don't work, like green hydrogen fantasies and steel pipe dreams, while small businesses are left to suffocate under red tape. Campbell Newman's right. This is a journey into hell, mate. And while the government pats itself on the back for being so forward-thinking, ordinary Aussies are burning through their savings just to keep the lights on. What really grinds my gears is how Labor's approach to jobs is a complete rot. They brag about record employment, but let's call it what it is, fake jobs, government-funded gigs that make the numbers look good, but don't actually move the needle. 80% of jobs created in the last 2 years were funded by the government. That's not job creation, that's cooking the books. Meanwhile, the private sector's stuck in quicksand, strangled by taxes and endless regulations. It's like watching someone pour water into a sinking boat and calling it progress. And here's something no one in the mainstream wants to admit. Albanese's weakness is emboldening the worst elements both inside and outside this country. When your Prime Minister shows the world that he'll cave to pressure, what message does that send to our enemies? To those who already see Australia as a soft target? It tells them loud and clear, if you scream loud enough, if you threaten hard enough, we'll fold. That's not national security, that's waving a white flag before the fight's even begun. And every Aussie watching knows it, even if they don't say it out loud. There's a collective unease, a sense that the people steering this ship don't actually know how to fight for us. You've got to ask yourself, what happens when the opposition really starts hammering this point home? Because Susan Ley's already shown she's not afraid to call it like it is. She's not going to sit back and let Albanese swan around pretending he's the great unifier. Nah, she'll dig right into the cracks, point out every broken promise, every shady deal, every weakness he's tried to hide. And you know what? Aussies will listen, because deep down they're sick of the lies. They're sick of being told that everything's fine when their lived reality is the complete opposite. They don't need another speech about inclusion. They need cheaper bills, safer streets, and leaders who don't fold like cheap deck chairs. Now, you might think I'm exaggerating, but look around. Every week there's another announcement, another flashy plan, another tax dressed up as a levy or contribution. Take the fire services levy in Victoria, up by 300% for small businesses. 300%. And the government has the gall to market it like it's going straight into the pockets of emergency workers, when really it's just another cash grab to cover their own incompetence. That's the Labor playbook. Slap a feel-good label on highway robbery and hope no one notices until it's too late. And while Aussies are getting crushed under this weight, Albanese's priority is cozying up to activists and foreign interests. That's the bitter pill no one wants to swallow. He's more worried about looking good on the world stage than actually running the country. He wants to be seen as the guy who listens, who cares, but what he's really doing is trading away our sovereignty one concession at a time. And for what? Applause at a climate summit? A pat on the back from the UN? That doesn't put food on the table for Aussie families, and it sure as hell doesn't keep us safe from threats. You want to know why this stings so much? Because Aussies have been here before. We've seen governments that overpromise and underdeliver, that sell out the battlers while pretending to be their champions. But this feels different. This feels more dangerous, because Albanese isn't just failing on policy, he's failing on principle. He's showing the world that Australia can be pressured, bribed, or bullied into submission. And once you lose that respect, once you lose that image of strength, good luck getting it back. It's like blood in the water. Every shark out there's going to smell it. And here's where Susan Ley comes back into the picture. The first woman to lead the Liberal Party, stepping up at a time when the country is crying out for someone with a spine. Whether you like her or not, you've got to admit she's got guts. She doesn't pull punches, and she doesn't care about making friends with the activist mobs. That's what Australians want right now, someone who'll actually stand firm. And Albanese knows it. You can see it in the way he talks about her, the way he tries to downplay her rise. He's rattled, mate. He's rattled because he knows she represents everything he's not. Tough, unapologetic, and willing to cop flack for the sake of doing what's right. The contrast couldn't be sharper. On one side, you've got Albanese, desperate to please, desperate to be liked, folding under the weight of every loud demand. On the other, you've got Ley, unafraid to throw punches, unafraid to call the government out for the fraud it is. And Aussies are watching this play out in real time, shaking their heads at the circus in Canberra. They don't care about Albanese's image makeover or his international speeches. They care about whether their kids can afford a house, whether their business will survive the year, whether their leaders will protect them from people who openly wish them harm. And right now, Albanese is failing on every single count. And that's the truth no one in the government wants to admit. The tide is turning. Ordinary Australians, the ones who've copped the brunt of every bad policy, every tax hike, every sellout deal, are starting to wake up. They're angry, they're frustrated, and they're looking for someone who'll actually stand in their corner. Albanese thinks he's being clever, but he's digging his own grave, one cowardly concession at a time. And when the reckoning comes, because it will, he won't be able to hide behind speeches or photo ops. Aussies will remember who stood tall and who sold them out. And here's the kicker, mate, the more Albanese bends, the more obvious it becomes that he's lost control of the narrative. He's not running the show anymore. He's just reacting, scrambling to cover the cracks every time another demand gets shoved in front of him. That's not leadership, that's survival. And Aussies can smell weakness a mile away. We've always had this built-in radar for spotting the bloke who's all talk and no bite. And right now, Albanese is giving us nothing but recycled speeches and crocodile tears, while the rest of us are left wondering when the hammer's going to drop next. What makes it worse is the arrogance. He actually thinks he can spin his way out of this. He gets up in Parliament, he grins for the press pack, and he trots out the same lines about unity and resilience as though he's talking to a bunch of school kids who can't tell the difference between truth and spin. But Aussies aren't mugs. We know when someone's taking us for a ride. And it burns even harder when we see where the money's going. Billions into fantasy projects, billions wasted on deals that collapse, billions sunk into so-called solutions that leave us with higher prices and nothing to show for it. Meanwhile, the bloke running a cafe in suburban Brisbane can't keep the doors open because his energy bill doubled in 6 months. And don't you dare think this is just about economics. No, this goes right to the core of who we are. When a Prime Minister caves to mobs, he's sending a message to every ordinary Aussie that their voice counts for less than the loudest protester. He's saying the battler who works 12-hour shifts, pays his taxes, and just wants a fair go doesn't matter as much as the activist who screams into a megaphone. That's the betrayal. It's not just about weak policies, it's about turning your back on the very people who built this country. And that's why the anger is spreading. It's not just frustration anymore. It's betrayal, plain and simple. Now here's the part Albanese really doesn't get. Aussies don't like being underestimated. You can push them, you can tax them, you can hit them with bad policy after bad policy, but eventually they snap. And when they snap, they don't forget. They'll turn on you quicker than a footy crowd when the ump makes a shocker of a call. Right now, Albanese is gambling that people will stay quiet, that they'll swallow the spin and nod along. But you can feel it in pubs, on worksites, at the school gate. People are talking. People are angry. And once that fire's lit, no amount of PR fluff will put it out. And that's why Susan Ley's rise is so dangerous for him. She doesn't need to convince Aussies that Albanese is weak, he's already doing that himself. All she has to do is stand there, call out the obvious, and show a bit of backbone. And that's why he's rattled. Because deep down, he knows he's lost the room. He can spin all he wants, but when Ley hammers him about every sellout deal, every sneaky tax, every time he bent the knee to groups who don't give a toss about this country, it lands. It cuts. And Aussies are listening. What's even spisher is that Albanese can't fight back without looking worse. If he tries to hit back at Ley, he looks petty. If he ignores her, he looks weak. He's boxed himself into a corner, and the only way out is to somehow prove he's got a spine, but we all know that's not happening. He's already set the precedent. Once you've caved to mobs, you can't suddenly turn around and play tough guy. No one believes it. It's like trying to glue a smashed mirror back together. No matter how hard you try, the cracks are always there. And while he's fumbling around, ordinary Aussies are footing the bill for his weakness. More taxes, more red tape, more cost of living hikes dressed up as progress. Families are cutting back on groceries, businesses are laying off staff, people are dipping into their savings just to keep their heads above water. And through it all, the government has the audacity to tell us this is all part of some vision for the future. Vision? Mate, it's not a vision, it's a nightmare. And the only people who seem to benefit are the activists, the bureaucrats, and the fat cat corporates who play along because it keeps the competition out. Here's the brutal truth. This government isn't working for Australians anymore. It's working for optics, for headlines, for pats on the back from international elites who don't give a toss whether your power bill's doubled or whether your kid can afford a house. That's what makes it so bloody insulting. Because Aussies have always been straight shooters. We don't mind tough decisions if they're honest. We don't mind sacrifices if they're fair. But what we can't stand, what we will never stand, is being sold out while being told it's for our own good. That's the line Albanese is crossed. And once you cross it, you don't come back. So what happens next? That's the million-dollar question. Do Aussies just cop it, keep their heads down, and hope the next election fixes it? Or does this turn into something bigger, a full-blown rejection of the politics of weakness, the politics of appeasement, the politics of betrayal? Because that's what's on the line here. Not just policy, not just economics, but the very character of this country. Are we a nation that stands tall, backs its people, and tells the world to rack off when they try to push us around? Or are we a nation led by a bloke who caves the second things get uncomfortable? That's the fight. And make no mistake, it's only just heating up. So let's call it as it is. Albanese has caved to mobs, sold out Australians, and gambled our future on the approval of people who will never respect us. He's left ordinary Aussies carrying the weight of his cowardice. And no matter how many speeches he gives, no matter how many photo ops he stages, the cracks are showing. Aussies aren't mugs. They're watching. They're remembering. And when the time comes, they'll deliver their verdict. See you in the next one, and don't forget to slap that like button like it just sold off your local hospital to pay for another overseas junket. Oi, and if you're really fired up, grab the "Can I vote for a kangaroo" shirt. Wear it to the next rate hike meeting, the next protest, or just your local cafe when you're forking out $9 for a flat white while wondering why your tax dollars are fixing someone else's country instead of ours. Stay loud, stay awake, and never stop fighting for the Australia we bloody deserve.